Using the power of and a passion for maths, Michael O'Shea has already been making waves in the short time since he graduated. I'm Mackenzi Oliver, and on this episode of Ready STEM Go, we're talking about predicting the future with maths with Michael O'Shea. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks, Mackenzie. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share some of my story.
No, excited to have you on. So Michael holds a Bachelor of Mathematics Statistics and a Bachelor of Business Finance from QUT. Working for the Nous Group as a consultant, his skills and experience in statistical modelling complement a strong fundamental understanding of what drives organisational strategy. So some of his current project involvements include helping the government to better understand health outcomes across the state. And prior to joining NOUS, his work spanned all the way from the Australian swimming team to one of Australia's largest aged care providers. But before we dive into what maths has to do with swimming, we'd like to get you to share either an epic, inspiring, or a crazy STEM fact or STEM story. What have you brought with you today, Michael? Epic, inspiring, or crazy?
Yeah. I think it's probably a little bit of all three, and it is maths related. So when I first started my maths degree at uni, I thought that for the most part, people had worked out many of the interesting things in maths and that everything was already solved. But it turns out that there's a lot of unsolved problems, and there's still five or six in particular that are really big questions that people haven't quite worked out. So in particular around prime numbers, the Riemann hypothesis. So we don't actually know the exact pattern of prime numbers or how to be certain how that pattern actually occurs. So it's really exciting to know that there's still a lot of big and important questions out there in math. So it's definitely an exciting place to be.
Still more mysteries to solve.
Absolutely.
Well, very cool. So yeah, let's jump in. Mentioned in there that you were helping out the Australian swimming team. Why does sports use statistics?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I definitely love sports myself, just to watch them and enjoy them for what they are. But there is so much knowledge and extra things to learn, especially in sports of very close margins, like swimming and running and cycling, all those sorts of things. So in particular in swimming, there's these coaches and these experts and the swimmers themselves who know so much and understand so much about what's the best way to swim a race, what sort of way should you dive into the pool, how fast should you go on your first lap, all these sorts of interesting questions and nuances around how to swim well. And I guess that using statistics, we can answer some of those questions, I guess, with some bigger data sets. So we can have hundreds or thousands of different races that we have information about, and we can use those to understand maybe what are some of the trends across those races. So by creating these statistical models, we can help understand what might work best for different swimmers, what might work best for different teams, and we can give coaches and swimmers that extra level of confidence and information to help them be the best that they can be, which is really exciting because in swimming and other sports like that, even an improvement of point whatever of a second is quite amazing. So with the power of statistics, we can help them out a little bit with that. And yeah, there's always more to learn. So it's very exciting.
No, that is really cool. But way back when you started your maths degree, did you have any idea where you'd go with it?
Nah, no idea. I had no idea. In high school, I didn't do advanced maths. So in my final years, I wasn't doing advanced maths. And I was sort of coming towards graduation, and I thought, oh, like there's really good maths teacher at our school, really inspiring. Like this is an area that I'm interested in. How can I challenge myself at uni? What's a sort of new area that I can learn and do something that I think is really interesting? And so, yeah, I enrolled in a maths degree. I thought I'll give it a go. I'll learn some stuff. And so in my first semester of my maths degree, I did a subject which helped me catch up all the stuff that I'd missed in the more senior high school maths. And then, yeah, from there, I started to learn more in the classroom, made friends, solved lots of interesting problems, and just continued to learn more and more stuff and build my knowledge. And I also figured there's more and more data. Lots of organizations are collecting more data, and I guess maths will be helpful to understand how they can use that. We can tell organizations, government, businesses, not-for-profits, some really cool answers and work with them. So that seems to be the case, and I get to do that a little bit each day. So yeah, I think it's turned out quite well. It's a really cool space to be in.
Awesome. So yeah, you jumped in just looking for a way to challenge yourself when you started uni, and then you found your way more specifically into statistics. So how did you find your way in there?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of things. Definitely from a few mentors. I think that in particular, Paul Wu, who I ended up doing my research with, I was talking to him at a sort of random event talking about all STEM stuff with Paul and others. And I was just talking to him about the work that he was doing. So he was doing some ecological research and starting to work in sports as well. And I thought, oh, sports, I like sports. Like, what can we do with stats and sports? It sounds awesome. And we just had a really good conversation. I understood how he got into statistics because he sort of, told me his story and what really interested him about statistics. And after talking to him and a few other mentors or people in later years who had decided their majors and were doing cool stuff, I decided that stats was for me, and it was really cool. It's a very broad area. I think one of the things I really like about stats is it helps you understand conclusions from the other sciences as well. So it's very broad in that if you have a good understanding of statistics, then you can understand problems across lots of different fields. Because especially in that context, they have to come to these statistical conclusions and work out, oh, is this actually important, or is there something else happening in the data, or how do we work out how important these different variables are? And statistics helps build that solid understanding, at least of the theory. There's certainly always more interesting things to learn in the problems themselves, but I think it gives me a broad understanding of stats and opens up scope for lots of different areas and lots of different interests. So it's very broad, and I like that I can always learn different and new things.
Yeah, and like exploring those different avenues that you said, like the person who was sharing their story with you, done that, what was it, ecology and sports? Like that's two very different things.
Yeah, it's so amazing how some of the modeling does hold in these different contexts, and especially some of the breakthroughs that they come up with will be borrowing insights from one area and going, oh, okay, well that worked here, and they're both numbers. Like there does seem to be common trends between these things. Let's give it a crack in this other area. Obviously, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it is so intriguing to me that, as you said, two very seemingly disconnected things can be unified by statistics, or understanding what are the most important variables. That's really exciting, the diversity of problems that there are to solve.
Lots of different projects and different avenues that you can get involved with. But obviously there's sometimes a bit of a myth surrounding maths that it might be just, you and the numbers, maybe working a little bit more alone and self-directed. Do you have anything to say to maybe debunk that myth? Is maths a little bit more collaborative than people might think?
Yeah, extremely. I would say maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I would say it is probably one of the most collaborative areas, simply because of the power of having multiple minds. Like if you're looking at something from one perspective and you've maybe hit a roadblock and you're trying to solve a problem, it can be hard to work it out sometimes without verbalizing it or discussing it with other people. Or I guess going back to that example from before, someone might have done research in something like ecology or sports science or a different area, and even just by having discussions about how someone has solved another problem, you might be able to borrow some element of that thinking or integrate it in some way. So like especially being able to like verbalize those problems and work with people with different skills, you can see very quickly the value of those diverse backgrounds and skill sets and areas. So that is something that I didn't necessarily expect of math when I started. I thought it would be, oh, cool, it's me, a pencil and a piece of paper, and I'll kind of work it out. And if I don't work it out, it's all terrible and everything will be bad. But it's not like that at all. There's like so many amazing people to collaborate with. And yeah, it's very social in that way. Yeah, it's amazing to collaborate. It's really cool.
And I guess even from that, like that starting point as well of like receiving the data from someone who has either a problem or want to optimize or organize better. How do you find working like almost the client, I guess, if it's like in your consulting role or in the research role as well? How do you find kind of bringing that part of that communication in as well?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because there can be, I think, a temptation, having done maybe a more quantitative research area or study area, to jump straight into the problem and throw whatever complicated, cool model you can think of at a problem and hope, oh yeah, well, if this works, then it's great, and I don't necessarily need to worry about all the nuance of the problem and what it might look like. But especially in my research, I found that that's not the case. There's lots of nuanced things that you can't necessarily get from a data set or without understanding people that are experts in their area. So I guess a really good example of that was in our relay research that we did with swimmers. It turns out that if you're the second, third, and fourth swimmer off the blocks, then you're actually expected to swim your race a little bit quicker. And the reason for that is you can see your teammate as they come into the blocks, and then because of that, you have a lower reaction time, and you can get a flying start and actually race quicker. So getting that level of insight and nuance from sports scientists in that example and swimmers was actually critical to solving and understanding that problem. We could have been misled or actually come to the wrong conclusions if we didn't understand the context of the problem. So that definitely opened my eyes to, even though there's lots of cool statistical models, mathematical models to do, it's so important to understand the context of the problem and what the experts actually know. Because we would have come to some very misled answers if we didn't understand that. So again, another example of how collaborative it almost has to be, which is great. It's great to work with people in that way.
Yeah, because it's not just the numbers there, it's a story. Because you almost could have come to the conclusion, oh, it's the fastest swimmers are always the second, third, and fourth. But no, it's that understanding, although they know when they're about to jump, they've hyped up on that energy of the race as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, those more psychological factors as well. I think one of the conclusions that we came to at the end was, oh, we'd like to explore a little bit further some of these questions, because we also discovered that in general, the slowest swimmer on these relay teams would overperform compared to their usual individual time. So initially I thought, oh, if you're the slowest swimmer, you might feel a little bit too much pressure. You might become really worried that you're the slowest on your team, and you might go out too fast and then struggle towards the end of the race, running out of breath. But it turns out that, at least in our study, we saw that those slowest swimmers stepped up and they performed for the team. So that was something maybe a little bit unexpected, and it opens up a lot more questions. Even though it is a conclusion, it opens up a lot more questions, which is exciting.
Yeah, definitely so much more to explore there too. So what about what you're doing at the moment? What does your day-to-day look like now as a consultant?
Yeah. So I'm quite aware that consultant is quite a nebulous title. So
Very
it's a
mysterious.
little, yeah, very mysterious. Yeah. It definitely differs from day to day, month to month, depending on what sort of projects I'm on. I guess by way of example, it can vary all the way from working with teams to develop statistical models, to understand problems for clients. So it literally might be me working at my desk for a few hours, coding in the morning, working out, using some of my math skills, which is awesome. How do we work out these interesting questions and these problems using data? And then it's possible that in the afternoon, I'll be doing a few interviews with clients. So, for example, they might be clients benefiting from some sort of government program, or helping to run some government program, and understanding how that's working for them at the moment, what things we might be able to improve, some of the challenges that they have. So I guess it's really interesting to be able to switch lanes so often, I guess, in this job. So probably if you ask me, in a few months, I might give you a slightly different answer, but it's cool because there's always more things to learn and do.
Always keeping it fresh.
Absolutely.
And so you're not too far out of university. What have you already been using that kind of surprised you from your uni skill set that you've already used in the workforce?
Yeah, I think it might sound a bit silly and broad initially, but being able to take solid, concise lecture notes, I've actually found to be indirectly and even directly quite important in some ways. So being able to synthesize complex ideas, or ideas from lectures, it might be some mathematical problem, it might be some statistical problem. Being able to synthesize those ideas can be really helpful in other contexts as well. So even in the context of working with internal teams to work out what's the best way we should approach these problems and work these things out, all the way to actually interviewing people and understanding client problems. That concept of being able to synthesize other people's ideas and words and learnings, and being able to use those, I've found to be broadly quite important. And I think that maybe without uni or having those experiences, that would have been a lot different. So even though the content can sometimes be very different, I think it's that broad idea of learning how to learn, or learning how to take good notes and synthesize stuff, that I've found helpful basically all the time.
There you go. Everyone, listen to your lectures. So that's nearly all we have time for today. Do a little bit of a reflection here. Going back, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Probably two things. I would say, firstly, continue to enjoy the learning process. So whether you're at school or university, or even now when I'm working, there's always more things to learn and people to learn from, and people to teach and collaborate with as well. So there's always more things to learn. I think uni is a great environment for that, because you get that dedicated space and you get that collection of people, often with common interests. And then sometimes delivery, when you're doing research, you'll get diverse interests and you'll be able to solve problems in diverse ways. I would say that that's a really amazing process, and to enjoy that process. Obviously, it's great to get good marks, and that's a good indicator, but the learning process itself is really brilliant and transformative. So I'd say that is something I would like to tell my younger self. And then the second thing is not directly related to learning or university, but I would say to meditate and practice mindfulness. So I've been starting to do that in the last few months. Meditating in the mornings, and I've found that it helps me keep calm, sort of regulate my emotions, become more empathetic and thoughtful. And a really useful way to sometimes manage stress or anxiety as well. I find that really helpful. So if I could go back and tap younger Michael on the shoulder, I would probably say, hey mate, maybe just meditate at least a few times a week, or if you're ever feeling anxious or down, it can be really good to take that space out for yourself. Because it's a really helpful thing, and I think it helps you be more empathetic to those around you as well. So I'd love to tell my younger self that.
Definitely an amazing insight and awesome piece of just general life advice as well.
Yeah, I'm glad. It took me, a lot of failed attempts to start meditating, and being kind to myself, and understanding it's not okay to always do it in the best way, but just taking that time to breathe, and give yourself space can be really healthy and good for you. So I'm glad.
Let's all show ourselves a bit more kindness.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's all we have time for this episode of Ready STEM Go. Thanks for listening, and a big thank you again to Michael for joining us today.
Thank you. It was great to be on. Thanks so much for this opportunity. It was brilliant.
No, awesome. So yeah, definitely to all of our listeners, make sure you subscribe to our channel to never miss an upcoming episode, and join our Facebook group, QUT STEM is for me, to keep up to date with events and resources that you can access. Bye guys.